microphones on mute if you don't mind. We will use the chat if you don't mind to enter any questions you might have. We will have a Q&A period near the end where we will address any questions that come in from the chat. Um, all right, so let's get into our presentation for today. So today we're talking about our Microsoft Fabric for Infor customers and our offerings around that platform for people that have applications, ERP applications, and what have you within the Infor stack. So what we'll cover today is a bit about our company, StarPoint Technologies, a bit about Microsoft Fabric, and how it can benefit customers on the Infor platform with their applications, and also what our offerings are from a product standpoint to those customers that have those platforms. And then we'll show a quick demo of the environment as well, and then we'll do some Q&A and wrap up for the afternoon. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you find this informative. All right, so presenting today, there's me, Chris Hunt. I head up our consulting team here at StarPoint Technologies, and Noah Bion is also on, and he'll be doing some of the discussion and the demo for you as well today. All right, a little bit about us. So we're a company that revolves around data engineering, data warehousing, analytics, BI, and the emerging technologies of ML, AI, and what have you around those things. We're basically a data company. We help companies leverage and use their data assets to benefit them with their operations strategically, and get value out of the data that they collect, those vast assets of data. Got a lot of customers in the Infor ecosystem and outside of that ecosystem, but and that's what we help them with. We are solely focused, not on applications, but on the data those applications produce, leveraging those for our customers' benefit. So as far as our partnership with Infor is concerned, we've been an alliance partner for quite a number of years. We are, the tops when it comes to analytics partnerships with Infor. That is our sole focus. So we're a little bit unique in that ecosystem. We work very much with customers in the manufacturing and distribution industries. So with ERPs typically around Infor M3, CSDE, SX, CSD, LN, and others. Applications such as Factory Track, WBS, everything that Infor offers. So we're data integration experts, data and integration experts, analytics experts, anything around data. Like I said, we have a focus around a few platforms, Microsoft being one of those that we focus on for sure. We have content that we've built, that supplements what's there from Infor and gives customers, a jump start and a foundation for their needs around a foundation for data that they can use then to, either use content that we provide from a reporting standpoint, analytics standpoint, or build their own. All right. We've got a lot of different partners. Today we're talking about the Microsoft side of things, but we do a lot of different things. We work with a lot of platforms. So we're certainly willing to talk about these with anybody that might be curious about these different technology stacks and those platforms. Today we're focusing on Microsoft. So all right, let's get into Fabric. Before we kind of dive into what it is, let's talk about typical environments that customers have. So analytics at scale can be pretty complex. It can be fragmented. It can be pretty heavyweight. You've got a lot of different systems out there that need to patch into other systems, a lot of different vendors that give you data integration, data warehousing or database infrastructure or big data infrastructure and those kinds of things, and the platforms that are used to do reporting, dashboarding, ML, machine language type analysis, AI, and so forth. You've got a lot of those different things out in the ecosystem or out in the marketplace that you can use and leverage to, to benefit your company. But, traditionally those architectures that have resulted from all of these tools from different vendors and what have you have added a lot of complexity in the environment. So you see a lot of these complex architectures where you've got different products that require different skill sets or licensed from each of their respective vendors, things like that. So a scaled solution is, kind of heavyweight from a management standpoint, from a licensing and cost standpoint, and so on. So that's really where Microsoft Fabric comes in. So what Microsoft has done to create Fabric, or as their Fabric offering, is they're taking all these different pieces that were, a lot of them available already via Azure, and packaging those together into a, more integrated, a more cohesive whole of different tooling, and offering that for a very competitive price from a subscription standpoint to their customers. So what you've got are the ability, the tooling, and the ability to connect to your data and extract it and process it, engineer it, and warehouse it, both from a, lake house to a warehouse standpoint, so that you've got that data foundation properly, you know, uh, properly consumed and then presented, so that you can use some of the other things that are part of this, the data science things, your artificial intelligence, your machine learning things, your real-time alerting and intelligence as well that you get, as well as, things like your traditional reporting and dashboarding and what have you through Power BI. All of those things are packaged together within the solution and available to customers. And you'll see kind of, right here that also you've got, Copilot that is pervasive through all of these tools. So kind of like what they did with Microsoft Office, you've also got Copilot in Microsoft Fabric, so that it's there to help you with your needs. Not only is it there for consumption for your users to use to ask questions about your data, but you can also use it as a developer or power user to do certain things. Like, say you want to ask, about developing an algorithm for an AI solution that you're developing. That's there to help you get started with it as well. All of that is on top of the OneLake storage data infrastructure product that Microsoft has, that's a part of Fabric that you get with it. It's a very low cost from a standpoint of how much it costs for storage, but it gives you a lot of capabilities. It encompasses your traditional ODS, data lake, and data warehouse kind of things all in one place, where you can manage it all from one area very easily. And that also, includes their governance, that Microsoft Purview you see at the bottom there. Also includes full governance, so you can control who has access to what, and make sure that, the correct people are using the correct data. So that's the offering that Microsoft has introduced in the marketplace that we're going to show and talk about today in general, and our solutions that we built for customers on those. So getting a little bit more into what it might mean for a Infor customer. So let's say you've got different applications, some of those from Infor and some from other third parties, whether that be ERP, other things. We we're able to connect to those, whether you're on premise with your solutions, your applications, you're in a private cloud situation, so you've got, your own cloud that you've got these applications installed, or you're in Cloud Suite, you're in Inforce Cloud, or you're a combination of those things, or you're transitioning from one to another. A very common use case for us with our customers is that we will work with them to give them all these capabilities while they're on-prem and transitioning to the cloud, to make that information solution seamless from a transition standpoint between the two, so that there's not a kind of a cut or a minimum kind of solution in place while that cloud rollout is happening. We can transition from one to the other seamlessly with all the capability that the customer has. all of that stuff. So what we have is we can connect all of these things easily, whether or not we're using our connector, which we built for Infor's data lake, to Microsoft Fabric directly. We can connect to those, or we can connect to traditional data sources in the private cloud or on-prem, get that all of that information in one place on one lake. And since Fabric is all of their compute is serverless, you've got serverless compute with all of your warehousing, engineering, data science, Power BI, and whatnot on top of that one lake storage. All right, just a typical Fabric architecture to walk through here. You've got your data sources. What we do is we utilize Microsoft's medallion architecture, starting with bronze, silver, and going to gold, where we're extracting your data and then getting it ready for consumption. So in the bronze layer, you see here, we're extracting data from your different sources, cloud, on-prem, what have you, and staging it within different lake houses, whether that be files, database connections, APIs out in the cloud, what have you. On the silver layer, we are taking that data, sharing it. We're not making copies of data and putting it in different places. From a performance standpoint, speed essentially, and also just you know, reduction in complexity. We are shortcutting to that data, doing a little bit of transformation, correction, that kind of things in our silver layer, cleansing, so on and so forth. And then finally, we're also sharing that data again over to our gold area where we're doing our final warehousing and where it's available for reporting. We've got our direct lake semantic models and Power BI, things like that allow for reporting out of Power BI or other kinds of usages, whether they be self-service through the report tools, dashboarding tools, or more around query and AI, ML, that kind of thing out there. Those are available. Once we get it to that gold warehouse standpoint, we can do that. You'll also see a layered dev test prod within that. We can control and create pipelines between them to give you a full sort of governed life cycle to the things that you're developing. All right. Moving on to our solutions. So we have solutions that we offer customers, and I'll go through what those are. First of those is we have a connector for Microsoft Fabric into the Infor data lake. And what that is that, there's really not for any platform, Microsoft Fabric being one of those, native connectors to the Infor data lake at this point. So we perceived, a need in the marketplace for our customers to get a low cost, high performance, lightweight connector to be able to get their data and move it directly to Fabric. So we're not talking about something that goes to a Postgres, what have you, like some that we've some solutions we've seen out there, or it's not a subscription where we host your data and give you access to it. This connector exists in your Fabric environment and gets data directly from Infor's data lake and their in Infor applications to your environment, your Fabric environment. So it goes straight from one to the other. So we go straight from the data lake into your Microsoft Fabric one lake storage. And all this exists within your tenant that you control. So we give you low latency replication, very low latency replication. We can pull for new records very often. Simple config, just a few, little files that you say, I want this table, I want that table from M3 or CSDE. Very quick, painless setup where we can deploy this very rapidly, get your data within the environment, and then start syncing it on an incremental basis so that you get new data very often. There is a new development here. When we talk about low latency, we also have an additional near real time connector that instead of pulling data and pulling it in, it's more of a push style connector that gets data directly from your applications, bypassing the data lake actually and going directly from your applications like M3 to Microsoft Fabric. That's also available in something we can discuss. It's a new thing for us. It's kind of another arrow in our quiver, so to speak, so that we can provide customers for a solution for those things that are truly near real time that they need for operational reporting or other kind of analysis that needs really true near real time capability. All right, another product that we offer, or a series of products that we offer our customers, are what we call rapid deployment packages or content packages. And what these are, packages of the connector, a data warehouse, reporting, analytics, and all of those things that give customers a jump start around their different kinds of typical data needs. Whether that be sales, inventory, procurement, supply chain, we've got content for those and other things on the roadmap. These are, pre-integrated, built for the M3, data structure so that we can plug it in and configure it for a customer and get it out there very quickly to give them that foundation of a data warehouse and a solution for their data, and also a little bit of a jump start when it comes to reports, content, analytics content, and things like that. That then, the customer, or with our help, can build on those solutions, whether that be more reports, more dashboards, and or more, usages from an AI standpoint. Copilot comes with the Fabric environment now. So once we have that data foundation for you, you're able to then use Copilot to ask questions of your data and get answers. And that's really powerful feature of the platform that you get just for the virtue of you being on the Microsoft platform and us providing the data in a proper format to where that kind of usage can happen with a minimum of errors or hallucinations, or, you know, not as much delay from a standpoint of retrieval and interpretation of your data. So we're giving you that data foundation from which flows content that we built and content you build from a reporting standpoint, and also an AI standpoint, whether that be generative AI or traditional AI machine learning kinds of applications. The Power BI, a little bit more detail here about the Power BI report content that we've got available to you. We've got here's a sample of what we've got. It's, invoiced open sales dashboards. There's also inventory, supply chain dashboards and reports and things like that. Gives you, time period comparisons and drilling capability. As far as, the data content itself, here's a summary of that. We've got different metric tables out there that can track your revenue and inventory and supply chain performance, as well as your different foundations from a master data standpoint, or dimension data standpoint, your products, your customers, things like that, that would correspond to a lot of your programs within M3 that you'll recognize. We give you a direct lake semantic model. So what that kind of means is when your data is updated within the data warehouse, it's immediately available to your Power BI users. There's no extra process that you see with traditional Power BI reporting where you refresh your model and then your users get access to it. In this case, once the data itself is updated, your content is up to date and you see the new stuff there. Also provides you, calculation groups, field parameters, and what if analysis things. To all of these things are out there and built so that you can do some dynamic, comparisons and what if analysis and what have you on top of your data through Power BI, essentially. So why does this matter? So overall, over building these things yourself, both the platform, both what we have to offer you, are going to be a lot lower cost than you'll find you building it yourself, for example, or contracting with a third party like us or one of our, companion organizations, or out there in the marketplace, building that for you. It's going to be a lot lower cost, shorter implementation, um, you know, uh, that accelerates your ability to go from data to value. Um, gives you end-to-end visibility through a lot of different aspects of your data that you get there. Aligns with a lot of these projects where people are adopting Infor ERPs, or they're transitioning from one ERP to another, or to the cloud, or what have you. We like I mentioned before, we kind of align with those projects and give you that seamless transition from one to the other from analysis and data and reporting standpoint. Um, this avoids lock-in. Microsoft is, built, this is all built on standard SQL kinds of things, where there's a lot of talent in the marketplace. You have the data, you own the data, it all exists within your tenant. So there's no fear, needed of lock-in on more kind of proprietary solutions that might be out there for Infor customers. So, and it's developed based on our years of experience and expertise in this industry and with these applications that Infor has to offer. A couple of options out there as far as we goes. We've got kind of a more of an a la carte sort of, you know, basis on this, where you can pick the different kinds of domains, whether it's sales or inventory, warehousing, that kind of stuff. A lot of options you can kind of see on the left that you can kind of pick and choose as far as your solutions. On the right, we have a more of a fully managed option. Looks like a shorter list, but basically it concludes most of the things on the a la carte kind of side. Some things are still options based on whether or not that applies to you as a customer, whether you need real-time, needs for your data, whether you need custom AI or ML, development things built for you, or other customizations, essentially. Those are still options, but much of the stuff on the fully managed option is much of the stuff from the quick deployment option is included in that fully managed option. It's also a more managed, actively managed environment where we're really taking care of we're taking care of all of the things for you, essentially. So yeah, those are a couple of options. We'd love to discuss those with you. If you got an interested in one or the other, we love talking about these solutions and how they can benefit our customers. So we'd love to talk to you about it. Just to kind of quick, before we get into our demo here, just a real quick kind of basic roadmap from a project implementation standpoint. Our kind of runs 60 to 90 days, depending on how much customization your organization would like to have. We deploy these things pretty quickly, so well within that 60-day time frame, you're going to start seeing things. But as we go along, we're provisioning your environment, we're deploying your data warehouse content, and also developing any customizations for you from a data standpoint. Then we're deploying our content from a reporting standpoint, and then packaging everything up, getting it ready for delivery, validation, getting it out to your users and helping manage that change management sort of task to make sure that your adoption story is a good one. But this looks like a typical project for us and kind of timeline. All right. So at this point, enough of me talking and showing slides. What we're going to do is go into a quick demo of the environment that Noah's going to walk you through here. So take it away, Noah.
Thanks, Chris. All right, let me get this pulled up here. All right, so Microsoft Fabric is built in familiar platforms. So if you're familiar with Power BI, you might recognize this because it's really just the Power BI UI that you can connect to in Power BI service. But here now we have this Fabric view and Power BI view, so you can swap between different types of development. So if you're doing data warehousing or data science activities, then you can swap to the Fabric view. If you're doing reporting views, you can use the Power BI view. You can do all of the different things in each view. It's just one is tailored more for your end, business intelligence, and one is tailored more for your back-end development type stuff. So here, like Chris was saying, we have a few different workspaces set up. So for this demo, we're looking at our Infor M3 workspaces. We have a 1A, a 2A, and a 3A, and those will correspond to the different medallion architecture pieces. So 1A corresponds to bronze. So we have our 1A staging here, and here we have our data lake connector. So we have our different items here that we use to connect. These are Python notebooks that we're using to connect, some Spark SQL and stuff like that as well. So in here we have some documentation that kind of explains, I'm going to skip that tour, kind of explains how the different parameters work and what they're doing and what it needs to enable you to pull those tables over to Fabric. So here we just define the name of the table that we want, what paths we're using, what we want our timeout to be, again, table name, what the primary key is so it knows how to filter out duplicates, and how to store the data, what the variation numbers are, whether we want to include deleted or not, and what our fetch size is, and then whether we want it to retry and what our retry interval is. So we define all our tables here. So here we have a subset of tables that we can pull from the M3 application. Just to give you an example of some types of things we can pull. We can pull any table from the data lake. These are just examples of things that we pull. Once it's pulled, it's going to land it in our staging lakehouse. So I'll go back to our 1A space here. We have a couple different lake houses. So we have our M3 staging. That's where we're landing all our M3 data. And then we have files staging. So if there's any files that you wanted to upload, Excel files or text files, JSON files, stuff like that, you can put that into your files lakehouse. So I'll show you the M3 one first. I will load up those tables that I previously showed you. They're all being landed here. And I can just wait for this preview to load, and I can see what information is landed as a preview here. So give it just a second, and we'll load up. All right, so you can see here we have our, the SIDMIS, so we have all our supplier information here. So customer, company number, supplier name, what state they're in, etc. So this is just a subset of that SIDMIS table. Obviously, there's a lot more fields. We can pull whatever subset of fields you want that would be useful for reporting. Just for our demo, we pull a small amount just to keep demo space clean, right? So we have all our different tables. I can look at my different table fields, and it will tell me what the data types are here. I can do a few different things: view files, property, do maintenance on tables, rename the tables, etc. I can upload files here if I wanted to, new subfolders. I can upload different files or upload different folders if I wanted to. I can also go into a SQL Analytics endpoint view. With this SQL Analytics endpoint, you can connect to it like a traditional SQL database. So you could connect your applications to the SQL endpoint. They have all the connection strings and everything defined in here. So you can take those connection strings, connect your applications to it. Or if you're familiar with using something like SQL Server Management Studio, you can take the connection strings and then access these lake houses through that application just by connecting to it. So same thing as traditional SQL items. You have your schemas, your tables, your views, and you interact with it very similar to your standard SQL items. Here you can do your queries. So I can do a new query, and I can say let's just do a select all from SIDMIS. And then you see that same information that you saw in the preview a second ago. So you just you're able to interact with it like traditional SQL, right? You can also upload your files if you have different files that you want here. So I'll just show you this real quick. Here we uploaded a sales forecast file and turned it into a table. I'll show you how the sales forecast file was generated here in a second. This is just to show you that we can take like a JSON file or a text file, CSV file, stuff like that, upload it into here, and then we can start doing our transformations on it as well. So from there, we're going to move into our silver space. We call it our 2A prep space, and we have a consolidated lakehouse and sales forecast prep notebook. We'll start with the consolidated lakehouse. It's going to look very similar to our previous lakehouse. Just here, we're going to have a different schema. We have our M3 schema because we want to know where our raw data is coming from. You can see here there's a little link symbol in the top left of this table icon. This link symbol means that it's being shortcutted across spaces, meaning this data is not replicated in this space. It's just shortcutted directly from the raw data tables. So it's not being stored multiple times. It's basically just acting as a proxy. So when I load up this table, it's not actually in this lakehouse. It's just a proxy to the data in the previous workspace. So you're not storing things multiple times, using up a whole lot of storage. It just points back to whatever the previous ones were. You can see we have some other schemas as well. So we have our files staging and then our files. File staging is where we'll land the raw data from a file, and then files is where our transformed information lives. And so you can see same data here, and it's not crossing workspaces. So just real quick, this is a very big notebook. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to kind of scroll through it to show you. This is a notebook that we wrote. Some of it we wrote, some of it was items and some algorithms that exist in Fabric out of the box, and some of it was stuff we even used Copilot to help us write. So you can see kind of an idea of the power that's offered through the Fabric platform. So we can display our raw data, and then it has different processing tasks. We tell it what we want to do. We train it. We tell it, hey, these are sales for this period. It runs statistical analyses. It shows observed data and everything, and then trains it, tunes it, and then eventually gets to this output where you have your one step ahead forecast. In this case, we're looking forward 6 months. So we told it to forecast 6 months. And you can kind of see it follows with our patterns in those same months. So it looks like a pretty accurate forecast based on our previous performance. And then after we do all that, we can load that into a lakehouse. We can score the model and then load it into a lakehouse so that we can use it for visualization and development in our Power BI applications or anything like that. So from here, we move into our gold layer. Our gold layer, we call it 3A Analytics here. There's a few different things going on here, but the main ones are this curated lakehouse. This is the final landing point for the data after it goes through some transformations. So here in your curated lakehouse, once again, you can see there's shortcuts to these different tables. So that's where you're pulling in the raw data, and you're not duplicating the data, not taking up multiple storage points and all that. Then you have your files where you can see your demand forecast, and that's the final demand forecast that was generated by that notebook that you saw a second ago. So from there, we can create a warehouse and kind of turn all those data points into something more human readable. Now, since there's transformations going on the data here, this is a point where there is data writing. So there will be data load in the warehouse because we're making some changes to things, doing some data cleansing, making things human readable, and all of that. So here, again, pretty standard SQL kind of look. But now instead of SIDMIS and instead of Akuzma and stuff like that, we have supplier dim and customer dim, more human readable. And I can click into that, and you can see some of the transformations we applied on the field names when it loads here in a second. You can see key company, key supplier, name, state, all that. So it's way more human readable. And you can still, like every other point in this whole process, you can connect to this with applications. You can query it from SSMS or another query tool, and you can connect to it with Power BI. So that's where it lands at the end there. And from there, we can build out a semantic model. And if you're familiar with Power BI, you're probably familiar with semantic models. But what this is basically a metadata layer that tells data how to interact with other data points throughout the platform. I'll zoom out a little bit here so you can see it. So we have this sales fact, and it's connected to sales dim, supplier dim, all those different tables that we defined in our warehouse. And we're telling it how to relate on those different tables so that all that information can be kind of dropped into a star schema, and you can use it in reporting and use it pretty easily. You can also see different calculation groups that we have defined, measure tables, field selectors, stuff like that. So from there, after you have your semantic model all set up, you can set up something like this using the data in that semantic model. So this is an example of a sales report that we've built out. You have your different key KPIs in the top left. You have some charts throughout, and then you have some detail in your detail table. The power of calculation groups, I'll show you in just a second, but right now it's showing you what your year-to-date sales are for whatever period you have selected. So in this case, we're looking at March 18th, 2025. So this is year-to-date sales from that. We can also look at quarter to date. and it will change the numbers a little bit. And we can look at month to date, and it will change the numbers a little bit. Instead of having to have multiple reports and bookmarks and multiple different data points, different calculations, we can write a calculation one time and then apply different metrics across it, different date contexts, so that we can just see everything on one report and it's dynamic. I don't have to make a whole bunch of different things, a whole bunch of different reports. I can just have one report and have it swapped. And it's dynamic with all the filters. So if I wanted to see just my audio product group, I can see month to date for audio. I can see quarter to date for audio, etc. You can do all of that, and it's all very dynamic. You also see down here, we have a field selector set up. So with our field selector right now, we have state selected, and it's breaking a bunch of items by state. So you can see your period growth, you can see invoiced amount this year and previous period. So if I wanted to say customer instead, I could click customer, and then will tell me my customer growth and my customer prior period, current period, and then a breakdown of different items like invoiced amount, invoice cost, margin amount. And again, this is all broken up by different calculation groups that we have. So this is just one calculation written one time that is applying year to date and current period over it, and year to date and prior period over it. So we can tell it, hey, I'm looking at year to date this year. Can you show me that same period? So in this case, it would be January 1st, 2025 to March 18th, 2025. But can you show it to me for the previous year? So now this is showing me January 1st to March 18th, 2024, while this one is showing me January 1st to March 18th, 2025. So you can very easily and dynamically slice and dice your data by a bunch of different points. Basically, anything you have available in your data, you can slice and dice your data by, and you can also apply different date contexts over it so that you can see how it all interacts together. Very simple to do, very easy to set up, and this is one of those reports that we have out of the box with our solution. You can also do different things like this, where you have sales period analyses. You can choose different dates, different years, different months that you want to compare. You can swap between a year view or a year month view, and it will show you different tables for that. We don't have any data here, so I actually go back. Let's do 2024. August, September, October, so I can compare those if I want. I can do just 1 month. I can do the whole year. I can do, whatever I want. Very easy to slice and dice the data by. I can also look at my invoice amount, or I can swap it to margin amount. I can see it margin amount or margin percentage. And then down here, same thing. Current year, prior year, I can see for January 2024, that's what I sold. And for January in the prior year, that's what I sold. And I can compare it very easily, very quickly. Can also swap to a detail view. And it looks kind of familiar to what we saw earlier. You can
Hey,
see,
how you doing?
Good.
Oh.
I'm just doing work.
Okay.
if you could
Okay.
Mute real
Is
quick.
your salad in the
that'd be
fridge?
great. Okay, cool. And again, all of this is dynamic by your different slicers, whatever data you want in there. You can filter all this data down by. And then we go to a map. This is a pretty basic map view. You can also plot like your warehouses or your customers to see like where your customers are located, where your warehouses are located. So you can maybe plan for different sales activities based on those locations here. So I can go into various things. I can look at Texas. I can see my quarter to date versus year to date. I can change the date context if I want. I can filter it to different suppliers, etc. Right? So very, very simple, very easy to use. And then, like Chris was mentioning, Copilot is baked into all of this. So if I go onto Copilot, it gives me a few recommended prompts that I can use to get some information about my report here. So first thing I can do, let's ask it to prep a summary. It'll think for a little bit, and then it'll return a pretty good summary of the data that's on the page. All right. So it's giving me just the summary of metrics here. So it's showing me my period growth by state, what it can see on the page, different invoiced amounts by state, stuff like that. It'll also annotate it, so it'll show me where I got it or where it got it from. If I click the annotation, it will highlight the specific report that it got it from or the specific visual. I can also ask it something like, well, what stands out here? What's different or what's interesting about this data? A way I used to phrase this is, what would my boss ask me about this data? And it kind of returns some interesting insights just by looking at the page. So show you that your total invoice amount for the current year is lower than the prior year by a little bit, and it will tell you where it got that information if you click on the annotation. That one looks like it's just the whole thing. But then this one, higher period growth for Florida than other states. Yep, you can verify that there. Very interesting information like that. There's also a pretty simple report generation feature with Copilot. So if I said, "Hey, let's create a report page that summarizes supplier information." Now you got a pretty basic report where it tries to pull out some interesting insights from your data about suppliers. So it says your country and how many suppliers you have in that country, and each state how many suppliers you have in that state. You can give it more specific instructions, like can you show me my sales amounts by supplier, or different things like that. It will try to curate a report that gives you that information. These are typically not like feature complete reports, like something that we have built over here, right? But they are good starting points that kind of get you thinking about the data and get you at a starting place to see like what could a summary look like? What kind of data should I use for those things? So I'm not going to save that one because I need to keep my demo intact. So I'll just go back here. We'll go back to reading view. I won't save it. And that's kind of what you get from the beginning of the process all the way to the end. You ingest your raw data, you do some transformation tasks, you get it all into a warehouse, put it in a semantic model, and then you can build reports like this and get your insights pretty quickly and at a glance. And we have reports like this that are in our product out of the box that you can get started with very quick. And with that, I'll hand it back to Chris so he can wrap us up here. Hey, Chris,
Thank you, Noah.
yeah.
Here in a second, we're going to get to our Q&A part, or we got some questions that have rolled in here, and we'll address those and kind of wrap things up. But yeah, thanks for the demo there, Noah. It's really great. So before we get into those things, though, how can you get started on these things? So we've got a couple things. We love talking about these solutions. So if you've got something in mind, we'd love to hear from you, and we can schedule, either a more in-depth demo or a discussion about costs or things like that. We're also offering for a small fee, flat fee, assessments of your environments. Takes up to about a couple weeks to do. What we'll do is take a look in your environment, talk to you about your kind of your shop, the kind of technologies you use and favor, skill sets you have, your environment from a data standpoint, your data sources, and what have you. And then kind of what you want to do with that data, what your priorities are from a use case standpoint, and kind of give you a gap analysis, your landscape, uh, and costs from a implementation standpoint, timeline, give you some recommendations as well. So that's kind of one thing that we do to help you get companies get started. But we, like I said, we'd really love to just talk to anybody we can about these solutions and see where that conversation takes us. So sign up for a readiness assessment from us, or just contact us directly, find us LinkedIn, what have you, and we'd love to talk to you. All right, so let's get into some of these questions and answers. So I see from Ben here, what kind of maintenance be required during the major biennial release. So there's this could encompass a few things, and Noah, I'll get you to chime in here with any input you have. But some companies talk about backing up certain things. There are things that we would recommend from a um, I guess a development life cycle standpoint, also to safeguard you and things like that. We haven't seen any major problems, when as it stands from release standpoint. There's big releases and we see new features being rolled out all the time. But there's some things that we recommend to our customers, I'd say, that we would like to talk about. Kind of depends on what your priorities are from a data and developed content standpoint, that kind of a thing. No, any kind of further feedback you got on that?
I don't have anything additional on that one now.
Okay. So hopefully that helps. If not, then we'd certainly love to have a more in-depth conversation with you. Standard users included with F64. So yeah, what you probably have seen in the past is that Copilot comes with F64, but actually that is starting to come out with every um, SKU. It is SKU tied. It was F64 and higher. We get Copilot. That was required to have it. There wasn't like a way to add it on or things like that under that level. But now, really, it is available with any F SKU out there. Copilot is.
Yeah.
So no, it's not an additional cost actually, and it's available under that F SKU. Now, there's some considerations there that we would probably discuss with a customer about how to provision your SKUs and things like that to make sure that your environment is available. It's sheltered from any kind of science experiments, development work you're doing, and things like that to make sure that you're not running out of your capacity while you're experimenting somewhere else, or you've got some reserve capacity perhaps for Copilot do its processing and things like that. So there's some things to talk about there, but on kind of the face of it, you've got it available with any of the F SKUs. Did I miss anything there, Noah?
Yeah, just the F64 will give you all your users premium view licenses, and that includes the ability to use Copilot, right? So the only thing with something under F64, Copilot is now available under F64, but it does require additional licenses. F64 and above does not require additional licenses for users, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. So again, love to talk more in depth about these things. We certainly are available to do so. Um, I don't think I see any other questions out here. So I think we'll move to wrap things up. So yeah, for StarPoint Technologies, we hope you enjoyed and got some useful information out of this session. Um, you know, we'd love to talk to everybody. So please give us a call or drop us a line. And if you've got some interest in Microsoft Fabric or any other, analytics platform, whether that's against info applications or other applications that you got, things like that, please get in touch. And thank you for attending today. And again, hope you enjoyed it and got some useful information out of it. Thank you.